If archaeologists found undeniable physical proof that the pyramids were built by an alien intelligence, the first crack would not appear in a laboratory. It would appear in a tour guide's voice, mid-sentence, in front of 40 tourists who paid good money to hear a story that just became untrue. Picture him at Giza. He has given this same explanation for 11 years. Copper chisels, ramps, tens of thousands of laborers, not slaves, skilled workers with beer rations and broken bones to prove it. He knows the script by heart. Then his phone buzzes in his pocket, and by the time the tour ends, his script is out of date. In this scenario, the proof isn't a blurry photo or a guy with a theory. It's something physical. A chamber, sealed since construction, containing material that doesn't match anything mined on Earth, arranged in a way that human tools of the era could not have produced. Isotope readings that don't add up. The kind of finding that takes 18 months of quiet, paranoid verification before anyone says the word alien out loud in a peer-reviewed paper. And here is the part people get wrong immediately. They assume the discovery means the pyramids were built entirely by aliens, hands off, humans just watching. That's the easy answer, and it's probably not the real one. The more likely version, the one that actually causes chaos, is messier. Some kind of assistance, or technology transfer, or presence during construction, that still leaves open exactly how much humans did on their own. Nobody gets a clean answer. That's what makes it unbearable. The first system to break isn't NASA or the Vatican, it's Egypt's tourism board. 9 million visitors a year came to stand in front of a monument to human achievement. Overnight, half the plaques at the site are technically inaccurate, and nobody in the Ministry of Antiquities has the authority to just rewrite 4,000 years of national narrative before lunch. Gift shops keep selling ancient human engineering t-shirts for weeks out of sheer inertia, because reprinting merchandise is slower than reality. Then it hits school textbooks, and this is where the real fight starts. Not the science chapter, the identity chapter. Egyptian history has never just been history. It's pride, it's tourism revenue, it's a claim to being the origin point of civilization. A confirmed non-human hand in the pyramids doesn't just update a paragraph, it reopens a wound about who gets credit for the ancient world, and who was already living there and building things that worked, alien help or not. The hidden system underneath all of this isn't archaeology, it's credibility. For over a century, scientific consensus has operated on a simple deal. The fringe theory is wrong until proven right, and being wrong publicly costs you your career. Ancient astronaut researchers spent decades as a punchline. The moment one piece of that theory turns out to be true, the entire credibility economy has to figure out what to do with people who were right for the wrong reasons, using bad evidence, and got mocked the whole way through. Watch what happens to the actual scientists first. Egyptology PhD students, 3 years into dissertations about labor organization and ramp construction, don't get to just add a footnote. Their life's work becomes a study of the human half of an unfinished story. Some pivot fast, some don't. University funding, which has ignored anything resembling xenoarchaeology for generations because touching it meant career suicide, reverses inside a year. Suddenly there's a job title that didn't exist before, and the people who spent their careers being ridiculed for asking the wrong questions are the only ones with a head start. Meanwhile, SETI, which has spent decades explaining to skeptical funding committees why searching for alien signals is worth taxpayer money, doesn't have to explain anything anymore. Budgets that took 20 years to build get approved in a single afternoon. Not because anyone found aliens out there, because everyone just found proof they'd already been here. The conspiracy community has the strangest reaction of anyone. You'd expect celebration. Instead, a lot of them go quiet, because vindication and relevance are not the same thing. Being right stops being fun. The second mainstream science absorbs your idea, funds it properly, and does it better than you did with a flashlight and a theory. Some of them adjust into consultants. Some genuinely resent that the professionals get the credit for the thing they said first, badly, for decades. Then the second-order pressure starts, and it's bigger than Egypt. If one impossible ancient structure had help, people start asking about all the others. Stonehenge, the Nazca Lines, Baalbek, where the stone blocks are so large that modern cranes would struggle with them. None of these get new evidence overnight. But the burden of proof flips. For a century, aliens was the theory that had to prove itself. Now, no aliens is the theory that has to prove itself, site by site. And that's a much slower, much more expensive argument to win. A new market appears almost immediately, and it's uglier than people expect. Verified non-human origin artifacts become the most valuable physical objects on the planet, which means forged ones flood in behind them within months. Museums that used to worry about stolen antiquities now worry about counterfeit alien ones. A small chip of the original chamber material becomes worth more than gold, which means somebody, somewhere, starts selling gravel with a good story attached. Religious institutions handle it with more nuance than the memes expect. Most major traditions have absorbed stranger revisions before. The actual pressure point isn't, does this disprove God? It's smaller and stranger. What do you do with thousands of years of sermons, texts, and paintings that quietly assumed humans built everything impressive on Earth by themselves? Nobody loses their faith over a chamber in Giza. A lot of people quietly update their footnotes. The people who adapt fastest are the ones you'd expect least. Documentary channels. Museum gift shops. Egyptian tour guides, who within 6 months have a new script, a better one. Because, here's what we don't know yet, is a more interesting tour than, here's what we've always said. Uncertainty, it turns out, sells tickets just as well as certainty did. The people who get stuck are the textbook publishers, the ones who print physical books years in advance, sitting on warehouses of material that's now outdated before it ships. And university departments that built entire reputations on being the last word on how the pyramids were built. Being the last word suddenly requires reopening every conclusion you were famous for having already closed. Here's the part that never makes it into the headlines. A year later, most people have stopped talking about it. Not because it stopped mattering, but because humans are extremely good at absorbing enormous facts into ordinary life. The pyramids are still there. The tour buses still run. Kids still get bored on school trips. The chamber becomes a line in a textbook instead of a 5-alarm event. The same way the moon landing eventually became a fact instead of a miracle. What sticks around isn't the wonder, it's the redistribution. Money moves from traditional archaeology into a field that didn't have a name 2 years earlier. Credibility moves from people who spent careers being certain to people willing to say, we don't fully know. National identity gets a permanent asterisk it never had before. And the fringe, the people who were laughed at for 40 years, quietly become some of the most sought-after consultants in a discipline that didn't respect them until it needed them. Go back to that tour guide. Months later, he's still standing in front of the same pyramid. The stone hasn't changed, the angle of the sun hasn't changed. What changed is the story he's allowed to tell, and the confidence he's allowed to have while telling it. He used to know exactly how this was built. Now he knows exactly how much nobody knows, and somehow that version of the tour gets better reviews. Because the real discovery was never really about aliens. It was about how much of human history was always a best guess wearing the costume of a fact, and how fast an entire species can adjust once it's forced to admit that.